I am joined today by Secretary Pete Buttigieg. How are you doing today, sir?
Good. Nice to be with you.
So I just watched you speak to veterans for over an hour. You were very captivating. Can you summarize the feelings in that room? Can you summarize how veterans are feeling about Trump and Elon Musk's cuts?
Well, they're pissed, but also I think looking for a way forward. It's not just about everything that's happening now that's wrong. It's wrong to try to cut 80,000 people out of the VA. It's wrong to fire people who are working on things like the Veterans Crisis Line. But also, like, what is right? What could be better? You can feel that when you're with veterans, I think, because anybody who took that oath wants to know that the country that we served is going to always be better for each passing generation.
The thing is, you were saying this really well. Veterans have a lot of experience with bureaucracy and inefficient institutions. How do you explain to people? Imagine I were someone who says, these institutions haven't been working for me. I feel disenfranchised. How do you explain that what Elon Musk is not doing is efficiency to people who feel disenfranchised?
Right. Yeah, I think first of all, I agree that our institutions, our government could and should be more efficient. I lived this working to get transportation projects done, seeing the way that red tape and inefficiencies could get in the way. So actual government efficiency improvement, including shaking things up, is something I am for. What they're doing is not that. And you can tell because of how sloppy and chaotic it's been. The fact that they thought one of the things they did saved billions of dollars and they were off by about 10,000%. Tellingly, the fact that they are not being as transparent right now about the numbers, which means on some level they know that they're not delivering. Randomly firing people, not based on the performance, not based on whether they were good or bad at their job, but just because they could. This is not how you make government more efficient. And actually, it does the opposite. It creates uncertainty, chaos, makes it that much harder for people who are trying to do a good job to succeed.
Are you telling me that cutting nuclear stockpile workers and rehiring them, then maybe cutting them again, isn't an efficient way to run the government?
Not a great management practice.
Probably
right?
not too solid.
Or to put it another way, like for folks who say, oh, we're going to run the government like a business, and look, government just fundamentally is different from a business. One thing you would never do in a well-run business is take some of the most mission-critical people you have, fire them, and then try to get it back.
Yep, or imagine the CEO of a business trying to say somebody else takes the blame for something. It stops with the CEO.
Yeah.
What Trump does is always try to divert responsibility. Imagine being the owner of a restaurant and you blame everything on a waiter. That's basically what Trump does. Yeah. So I want to ask you, how do we hold him accountable when we see this massive corruption in the form of a $400 million jet from the royal family of Qatar?
Well, I think it's important to begin by looking at how people feel about this as a country. To put it another way, we got to remember and recognize that this is already unpopular. He's created this kind of aura of invincibility. This is a guy who got in, he won, but barely, and without getting a majority of Americans, and his popularity has sunk since then, which shows that most Americans, left, right, or center, don't like what they're seeing, whether it's the tariffs that are making us pay more, or the idea that it's okay for the leader of the free world to take a free airplane from a foreign government. This is something that people already believe. We just need to make sure we bring it to the forefront.
Okay, if I were at a Trump rally right now talking to a Trump voter, they would say, yeah, it's probably bad, but both sides are corrupt. Both sides are equally as corrupt. How do you debunk that, and how do we change the image of the Democratic Party so we aren't seen as corrupt?
There's no comparison. Nobody's perfect, but there's no comparison.
I know that.
And but that's where I begin, and then you start with some evidence. And look, it's tough, especially if people get information from their preferred sources and not from sources that are required to have editorial standards and check facts and that kind of thing. But I think it starts by acknowledging, there are reasons to feel disappointed about what's happened under Democratic and Republican governments, but nobody under Democratic government has ever tried to suspend habeas corpus or blow off a court order after illegally arresting somebody and shipping them out of the country, or try to take an airplane from a foreign government.
Exactly. Imagine if Bill Gates donated a historic amount of money to Biden's campaign and they were just seen walking around at like an NBA game together, walking around the White House. There is no comparison between what Democrats and Elon Musk have done, right?
That's right. I mean, again, it's not even close, but we need to show that, prove it, and lay it out.
So what's your forward-looking vision for the Democratic Party? Say, again, I'm a disenfranchised voter. I'm young, I'm old. It doesn't matter who I am. I'm a disenfranchised voter. What's your forward-looking vision for how we begin to communicate with the working class? So
we are about a better everyday life. That means making sure you get paid more. It means making sure that things are affordable. It means making sure that there is quality public education and good transportation infrastructure and clean air and water and all the other things that that we need in order to live well. We can see the other side demolishing some of those things. We're determined to deliver them. And where policies have failed in the past, we will find new policies. We're not clinging to an old status quo. Okay, you look at the onset of artificial intelligence, some of the other profound changes that are coming to our economy. Answers that worked really well in the 1940s and 50s aren't going to work, or even in the early 2000s, aren't necessarily going to work now. We get that. And we're not going around promising to return to some faded glory. We're talking about a better future.
I want to ask you about artificial intelligence. Do you think the Democratic Party should be messaging around that and filling that vacuum before Republicans are able to? Because we see schools having personalized teaching methods. AI can make the government more efficient, healthcare more efficient. Should we jump on that messaging before Republicans do?
I think we should. I think our whole society is still underreacting to artificial intelligence. There is huge potential in terms of safety, benefits. I'm thinking about things like preventing the car crashes that we experience as a country right now. Huge benefits in terms of automating what is now bureaucratic, paperwork-intensive processes. And also huge threats, huge problems, not just critical security threats, but just what could happen to a lot of jobs and the workforce as this develops. Now, look, AI is going to create so much value and so much wealth that if we get it right, everybody could wind up better off. We could really realistically see a future where there is a shorter work week and more money in your pockets. But that won't happen on its own. That requires people in charge who are ready to insist that this doesn't just lead to preposterous levels of inequality and wealth for a tiny handful of people, but actually benefits us all.
So you'd be okay with the Democratic Party having proactive AI messaging so the Republicans can't fill that gap?
I think so. I mean, look, right now, AI is one of the few things that hasn't yet led to clear left-right battle lines. I think that's a good thing. But as we've seen with, vaccines, literally anything that doesn't seem political can become political. We got to get ahead of this, make clear what we would do, and then challenge anybody with a different or competing idea to say what it is.
Can you also explain to me how the House Energy and Commerce Committee, or how Republicans are using the House Energy and Commerce Committee to sort of lie to the American people about their budget cuts when they necessarily have to target certain things like Medicaid? Can you explain?
Well, this is now something that is kind of naked for everybody to see. A few months ago, they were saying, oh, this is just a framework. We're not saying cut Medicaid, even though anybody doing the math would say there's no way you can do this unless you do. Now, this week, they're actually marking up the bill, and it shows what we knew all along, which is that, yes, they're cutting Medicaid. And the latest estimates, nonpartisan estimates, show that somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 million Americans will be kicked off of their insurance. Most of them wouldn't have another way to get insurance. That is something that makes our entire society worse off. No American should be unable to get health care.
Why are Republicans doing this? What's their end goal?
I think they just don't believe in the program. They don't believe that government should play that role. But what experience has taught us is that if you just leave it to for-profit corporations, people fall through the cracks and a lot of people don't get the care they need.
Is it true that some of that money will then be directed towards tax cuts for the richest people in America?
Absolutely. Look, a budget is literally a zero-sum document. And so if you cut over here, that is something that is being traded off for tax cuts for the wealthiest. At the same time, they're also blowing up the deficit, something conservatives claim to care about and that I really am concerned about. But they have managed to cut taxes for the wealthy, cut services for the poor, and still have the deficit get bigger.
Can I ask you about communication for 1 second? I've been to 40 to 50 different Trump rallies, and something that I've picked up while debating these people in a very respectful way, it's very much so your communication style is what I try to take, is that you can reframe their language reframe our values into their language. So I was talking to this Trump supporter, he says, stop funding Ukraine, put America first. I say, funding Ukraine is how we put America first on the global stage. It helps our economy, it boosts our manufacturing, it stops Russia. This dude understood, the Trump supporter understood. What kind of messaging techniques do you use when you're talking to Republicans or when you're trying to spread our values in their language?
Well, it starts with actually talking to them. So I'm really glad that you're doing that because you go to a Trump rally and I think you and I probably both have similar and very strong feelings about the president. But you meet somebody, you talk to them, and you see the person you're talking to is
nicest people ever.
Yeah, it's not some raging asshole. It's a fellow American who has a different view
Incredibly
of things
nice.
and often has shared values, doesn't always have shared facts. And that's where you can point to things, especially if you can find a mutually trusted source of information. Maybe it's a family doctor rather than the Department of Health and Human human services. Maybe it's some source that they look up facts on, or maybe it's just that conversation that presents something to them that they've never heard. Of course, they're not going to agree with our message if they've never heard it.
Yep, and Democrats haven't been getting in these spaces, which hasn't created this pipeline. For young men in particular, I always say that every young man has a dating problem. So you look up dating advice. At some point you have a dating problem, right? You look up dating advice, inevitably you get sucked down into Andrew Tate. Okay, so you're just trying to work out, right? I'm just trying to work out on Instagram and I'm scrolling through. Inevitably I get sucked down the pipeline to RFK Jr.
Right.
No matter what corner of the internet you're in, they're dominating the attention economy. That's why I love what you're doing. So can you tell me your plans to continue dominating the attention economy?
Yeah, what you're talking about is really important because so much of the political influence that comes to people comes when you're not looking for politics. It's one thing to go on MSNBC or Fox News for that matter, where people are consciously looking for political coverage. It's another to see how this content has filtered into people who are just looking for what protein powder they ought to use or dating advice, like you said, and they're not looking for the politics, but the politics finds you, because sooner or later, everything touches politics. Politics touches everything. And we definitely, the side I belong to, needs to do a better job of recognizing that people who just want to get through life are going to get these messages somewhere and from somebody. Better it be us.
And we can't be finger waggy because somebody slightly misunderstands. We need to have grace. Final question, how would you rate Trump's presidency thus far? How would you grade it if you were his teacher?
I mean, catastrophic.
Yeah.
If you're somebody's teacher, the worst they can do is fail themselves. He's failing the entire country.
Would you expel his ass?
Yeah, I mean, he is definitely, a danger to everybody around him, and unfortunately, that means the whole country. He's not. This is not okay.
Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
And I really love everything you do. Can we get one quick?